Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Chilltown Hoops. I'm your host, Jermaine. The youngsters call me OG. My friends call me J-Dub. Let's get to it. I watched a documentary years ago when Coach K talked on it. It was about the greatest college basketball game to ever be played. It was against the University. It was the University of Kentucky against Duke in the 1992 East Regionals. And it was probably the best, with the exception of Syracuse and Georgetown in '88 in the Carrier Dome that went into overtime. It was the best college basketball game that I'd ever seen. It was the best college basketball game that I'd ever seen, even to this day. And I've seen some pretty awesome ones. But there was a stretch in the game where Kentucky was down 12 and they had called timeout. And Coach K said, this is where you break them because they're going to give you everything that they have. And if you can withstand that, you break them. Well, what happens here today, what happens tonight is exactly that with the Miami Heat. Everything that they got, they're bringing it. And if Denver can withstand that, they break them. There are not many adjustments that need to be made. The things that have already been sniffed out, like Gabe Vincent switching onto bigs, and Max Strus shooting the basketball the way that he does. The things that have already been sniffed out, they've already been dealt with. So there aren't many adjustments that the Denver Nuggets need to make. Just keep doing what we were doing. And this thing's going to work. Gabe Vincent, I believe he's 3 for 16 in the last 2 games. And game 4 was largely due to him getting in foul trouble. He only played 18 minutes. When you're playing that little, when you're used to playing 25, 30 plus minutes, when you're used to playing that long, you get into a rhythm. And when you get into a rhythm, you get into the flow of the game. When you get into the flow of the game, good things happen. You're touching the basketball. You're involved defensively. You get into the flow of the game. 18 minutes, 3 fouls. 18 minutes, 3 fouls. I can't really get myself involved in the game like that. And Gabe Vincent is one of those guys who's an energy guy, right? He's a guy who plays a lot off energy. And I think he's shown in this postseason that in addition to his energy, good things can happen when he's on the floor. But when he's not on the floor and he's not in the flow of the game, no, he's not very good. Max Strus, I think he's got 2 games. Of 2 of the last 4 games, he's going 0 for 14, which isn't surprising. And the reason why it's not surprising because I've seen this before from him. If you remember last year in the Eastern Conference Championship in the Boston series, he went 0 for 16. He went 2 straight games where he didn't make a shot, including going 0 for 11 on the long ball. So this is who he is also. This is not an aberration. He will do this. He'll give you a stretch where he can't make a shot. That's a problem moving forward. So with that being said, they're going to come out with everything that they have tonight. Everything. Kyle Lowry is giving them great minutes off the bench. I mean, Bam is 23 and 12 in this series. I think he could do a better job at converting around the basket. I think he could do a little bit better. I think he could do a little better job of converting around the basket. But he hasn't. And I think that's cost Miami. His mid-range hasn't been bad. Putting Joker on the defense, if he converted around the basket a little more, I think that would have definitely put a lot more pressure defensively on Joker. A lot more pressure on him. They've done well on the backboard, except for game 4. They've done well on the backboard, but Jimmy Butler has not been pedestrian. A lot of people talk about Jimmy Butler like this team's been carrying him. No, they haven't. They have not. Jimmy Butler has been good. He's just not been what you saw in the Milwaukee series where he's 38 a game. No. He came back down to earth. In the process of him coming back down to earth, the other guys stepped up their game, but Jimmy Butler was still playing. And in addition to him playing, they were rolling. So this Denver Nuggets team, with Joker playing the way he plays, immediately you start to hear the all-time comparisons. And it's natural to hear that. And the reason why is because where we are in the season. Where are we in the season? Yo, is he as good as Olajuwon? Is he as good as Jabbar? Is he as good as Shaq? I have a difficult time with that logic. And the reason why I have a difficult time with that logic, because when I think about the all-time lists, so the point guard, the two guard, small forward, the power, and the big man. Of those 5 positions, I think the 5 spot is the toughest to crack. And the reason why I think the 5 spot is the toughest to crack is because the 5-man was the foundation for decades. I believe there was a stretch where half the league MVPs, I believe from the inception of the league MVP in 55, from the inception of the league MVP in 55 to almost 85, almost half the league MVPs were big men. And when a big guy is anchoring your unit, he was never the issue in terms of them not winning. It was you not doing your job, because the big man was going to do his job. The big man was going to score. The big man was going to rebound. You got to knock down shots. You got to defend, because the big man's going to defend. Jabbar was going to defend. Jabbar was going to rebound. He was going to rim protect. Chamberlain was going to defend. That's what the job of the big man was. So as much blame as he got, it was more predicated toward the guys around him, because the unit was built around him. That's why he was so good. So when I think about cracking that list, I think the 5-man is the most difficult to crack, simply because that's the foundation. That was the foundation of so many good teams. If you think about the best teams that the NBA has ever seen, they were built around the big man. You have exceptions like the Golden State Warriors, the Miami Heat, the 12-13 Miami Heat that won 28 straight games, the Golden State Warriors, who enhanced the long ball era, the Detroit Pistons, even though Bill Laimbeer was him and Isaiah Thomas were the foundation of that crew. Those two guys were the foundation of that crew. But when you think about the best teams, the greatest teams that the NBA has ever seen, they were built around the big guy. And because they were built around the big guy, the reason why they were built around the big guy is because the big guy was so dominant, so efficient, and so effective that the NBA was such a copycat league that, this is what we have to do. Right? We got to do this. So when you think about the 1967 Philadelphia Warriors, the Philadelphia 76ers, only team in the 60s to beat the Celtics. They were built around Chamberlain. How about that 72 Laker team that won the NBA championship, won 33 straight games, built around Chamberlain. Chamberlain gets on that crew. 3 years previous to that, they win the NBA championship. The Celtics in the 80s, built around the big man. Built around Bird. Bird is at 6'9", and Parrish and Kevin McHale. The Detroit Pistons were an exception. With the Detroit Pistons being an exception, the Bulls were also an exception. That unit was built around Jordan and Scottie Pippen. But then you got Olajuwon. Then you got the Spurs with Duncan and David Robinson. Then you got the Lakers with Shaq. The Detroit Pistons, which was built around Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace. So when you're talking about the big man and you're talking about him cracking the top 5, he's got to do something extraordinary, right? He's got to do something historical in order to crack the top 5. Now, before this series started, I thought the Joker would average a triple-double in this series. I think he's averaging a triple-double in this series. He's been phenomenal. He's been phenomenal. And how smart he is, right? How smart he is and how determined he is. How he can sniff out plays. The thing that I enjoy about watching him the most, he reminds me a lot of a bigger version of Larry Bird, in the sense that he'll see the game 1-2 plays ahead, where, okay, you're going to switch on, Gabe Vincent's going to switch on to Aaron Gordon. He's going to switch on to him. I'm going to dump it into you. That's going to work. Murray and I are going to run this pick and roll action. When we run this pick and roll action, I'm going to dive to the basket, but I'm going to drag. But when I drag slow, Jimmy Butler's going to switch on to me. When Jimmy Butler switches on to me, come right here, and I'm buckets. That's recognizing the game. And when he does that, there's really no counter to that because of how smart he is. I don't think that we've talked nearly enough about the rebounder that he is. I mean, we all know the distributor that he is, right? We all know the distributor that he is and how that offense goes through him and how well these guys play off of him. And I think that's attributed to them being together for as long as they've been together. So if you look at him and Jamal Murray, they've been together, they've played together 5 years. 5 years they played together. You can't put a price tag on that, man. When a crew has been together that long, when a duo has been together that long, good things are going to happen eventually. Eventually they're going to happen. When Middleton and Giannis were together, I mean, Giannis showed up in 14. I'm sorry, Middleton showed up in 13. Giannis showed up in 14. These guys actually started playing together because Giannis was a baby. But then they started really playing together like around 15. So like around 5 years. That was when Giannis won the league MVP and they lost in the Eastern Conference Championship to the Toronto Raptors. Like, you can't put a price tag on when guys play together that long. I say that to say, when you got a guy like Aaron Gordon, when he gets on the crew and he sees how this team is meshing and what he could do to get himself woven into the unit and how easily his transition was, that's the mark of a great team. That is the mark of a great team. I remember when the Lakers won the NBA championship in the 99-2000 season, and I remember thinking to myself, this crew is going to be around for a while. These two dudes in this crew with Ori, Derek Fisher, and Rick, these dudes going to be around for a while, so you better get used to seeing it. Now, I look at this Denver team, I'm on under no circumstances in any stretch of the imagination am I saying that Joker and Jamal Murray are Kobe and Shaq, or Jordan and Pippen, KD and Steph Curry. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying, though, is barring any injuries, I don't know who Jamal Murray is going to be moving forward because he has a history of injury, tore up his knee. So he has a history of injury. But barring any injuries, any catastrophic injuries, these dudes look like they're going to be around for a while. They look like they're going to be around for a while. Joker doesn't play like Giannis. His game isn't predicated on a lot of flight and athleticism. That's not his game. That's not who he is. So his game is predicated on a lot of IQ, getting to spots. And he is a bruiser, so because he's a bruiser, that may take a toll on him, but not as much of a toll as if he was playing like Giannis, where his game was, because he does get up and down the floor, but that's why he got himself in better shape. Same logic with Jamal Murray. I think that they end these dudes tonight. I do. And the reason why I feel like that is because I know that the Miami Heat are going to come with everything that they have. They're not coming with some or most. The Miami Heat are going to come with everything that they have. And ultimately, this is a personnel issue. We don't have the personnel to combat with the Denver Nuggets. We have the fight, we have the grit. They do too. And because they have the fight and they have the grit, it's now going to come down to who plays better basketball. And if I'm a betting man, not even a betting man, I'm going to take betting out of the equation. But if I'm watching this and I'm at the untrained eye and I'm thinking to myself, I don't really know much about basketball, the blue team looks better than the white team. And I know that whatever Miami has thrown at Mike Malone, it's not going to be anything new. I think he's prepared for just about any and everything. The crowd's going to be hot. The crowd's going to be hostile. I think that they end this thing tonight, and I think that the Denver Nuggets are going to be the 22-23 NBA champions. I would be surprised if they didn't. So we're still in the finals, though, and I'm here for it. You know where to find me at, guys, and I will be here. But until then, Take it light, but take it.